See, Kevin Samuels' legacy. That's the title of tonight's Instagram live, where I'm looking to hopefully be joined by Cheryl's World, who is a London-based sex and wellness content creator, and she's on her journey to become a psychotherapist. We're going to be speaking about the life, the impact, and the legacy of the late Kevin Samuels, who was a image consultant, a controversial YouTube personality, and polarizing figure who spoke about dating, marriage, relationships, especially about black relationships between black men and women. And I'm interested to speak to Cheryl about some of her views about Kevin Samuels, because he's courted a lot of controversy during his life, and also unfortunately when he suddenly died last week. But he's one of few figures that I can think of that was able to garner much attention from men, black men in particular, especially when we're speaking about our interactions with women and relationships. So hopefully when Cheryl joins, we'll start the Instagram live, and I'm looking forward to speaking to anyone else who wants to chime in and bring in to share their thoughts or opinions about Kevin Samuels. I'm not here to disparage the man. I didn't agree with everything that he said, but I did respect his work. Some parts of, again, he's some of his opinions were definitely controversial, and definitely not one that I agreed with, but I did respect what he accomplished in his relatively short time when he was. Oh, Cheryl, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I tried to set the tone and pay homage to the man.
You tried to do what?
I tried to pay homage to him by playing his music in the beginning whilst I was waiting for you.
Kevin Samuels had music.
Sorry. Oh, okay, that's okay. I get it. You didn't hear it. Anyway, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am very well. I'm very well. You look very lovely tonight.
Oh, thank you.
I'm giving you the confidence before the daggers come, because I think this is going to be a bit of a. I think this is going to be a bit of a hot one.
Can I roll my eyes back far enough?
You can. Just for the benefit of people joining. So we did a Instagram live, I think around this time last year, about Kevin Samuels and Derek Jackson. So this is kind of like, because they're a follow-up. And again, just for the benefit of people listening, Cheryl's a dear friend of mine, but she's someone who is not the greatest fan of Kevin Samuels, and we do have some back and forth now and again offline about some of his views. And whilst I don't necessarily agree with everything that he said, I do understand where he's coming from, and I do recognize that a lot of men do hold those opinions. So we're going to hopefully explore not only his views, but also some of the outrage that a lot of people have, especially women, towards him. Because even when he passed away, there was a lot of women online that was like celebrating his death, and which I think is distasteful, but everyone's got the right to their own opinion and stuff. So actually, before we start, do you want to quickly introduce yourself? About maybe I haven't done justice to who you are, and then we can go into the subject matter at hand.
So I'm Cheryl. What am I, Habib? I don't know. No, my whole thing is empowering women to have the best sex and relationships that they can have. I like to look at things from a more psychological perspective. So that's how we're having successful relationships and that kind of thing. So just check out my page. You'll kind of get a gist for the kind of things I do. But like Habib, we're on a mission to make everybody just be better all round. So that's it in a nutshell. So that was really crap. I think you did me more.
Oh no, don't tell me you're frozen. Is that my side or yours?
Everything seems fine at this end.
Can
so
you
I'm
hear me?
Go ahead and blame you.
I think it's my side. Sorry, I can see you now. Okay, great. Actually, before we get into it, when I posted a couple of clips of Kevin Samuels, some of his views, and even on my stories, the reaction that I received, especially in my DMs, where a lot of people was disgruntled by, I even publicly, some of these views I did tweet about and say I wasn't in agreement with some of what he said, but I do respect and I agreed with some of his positions. But why do you think that a lot of people dislike him, especially women?
Okay, first of all, I think we have to understand, I just want to say, like yourself, the man has passed away. So I think we kind of have to have a level of respect around the fact that he's passed on. I was, as you said, I wasn't a massive fan of the stuff that he kind of put out. I never really got into too much of his stuff because the stuff that I did see, I wasn't a fan of. So I didn't make it my business to watch every video that came out about his, or just, you know, immerse myself in his stuff. But I was very aware of the narratives and the kind of things that he was pushing out and the kind of angles he was coming with. So I just wanted to say that, obviously, rest in peace. You know, when a life is taken, a life is gone. I think no matter how we feel about the person, I think we have to maintain a level of respect for someone that's died. So this outpouring and some of the stuff that I've seen and read is a little bit distasteful, but I understand. And in answer to your question, why do women have such an issue with Kevin? I think I want to add, why do Black women have an issue with Kevin? Okay, this is a self-confessed image consultant. Okay, that was his whole bit. He's an image consultant. You know, before he kind of did the whole social media influencing thing, he was all about helping people, you know, get their image up to par. I think he sold perfumes and aftershaves and that kind of thing. So it's all about presentation, right? Did you know that?
I'm coming to that. Go on.
Okay, maybe that's what, I mean, this is just what I understood about him.
The backhanded compliment. I heard that. I saw that.
What was the backhanded compliment?
Self-confessed. That was the first thing. He was an image consultant, so we don't need to put self-confessed.
But he used to say it. He used to say, I'm a.
Yes, let's just call it. Why I saw, sorry to pick up on that, was that even a number of publications, especially Black media outlets, they will call him, they'll say like he's a misogynist, and then inverted commas or quotations, relationship guru or dating expert. He never once said he was a relationship expert, or he just gave advice, and women would call in and he'd give his opinion, perspective. Right. And then there were a number of people that would say that he wasn't qualified. Yeah, I would just say he's image consultant. I wouldn't say why would we say proclaimed? He just an image consultant, and he
because that's how he positioned. That's how he positioned himself when he first burst on the scene. Yeah. That was the kind of thing he was saying. This is what I am. Yeah. That was his thing, you know. No one's making that up. He was the one that went around saying that. I don't know if he felt that was going to give him more clout behind his opinions. But anyway, so my point is, why do a lot of Black women have an issue with Kevin? I think you touched on it. A lot of his views were misogynistic. It seems as though, again, to a lot of Black women, his positioning was about just, it was almost as if we took the Black female experience in the dating world, the relationship sort of arena, and kind of took the vulnerabilities that there are amongst Black women and the sort of pain and quite obvious issues around Black women and sort of relationships and stuff, and kind of blew it up and made it, almost blamed Black women for not being able to settle down, not being able to hold down the baby daddy, you know, not being able to get decent men that can do and give them what they want. You know, he made it clear that if you're of a certain age, you're not high value. If you're over, if you're over a certain weight, you're not high value. All of these different points. And I mean, some of it can just be chalked up as entertainment. Some of it could be chalked up as just, you know what I mean, you're being an arsehole, you're being a prick. But the reality of it is, when you have someone that has a platform that big and he's pushing out these narratives and he's kind of fueling, I guess, a narrative that's already kind of bubbling away under the surface, and he's bringing it to the fore and making it bigger and allowing Black men, especially that may already have their own individual issues with Black women, latch onto this and say, you know what, yes, what we've been saying all along is right, because Kevin is now saying it too. It becomes more problematic than it is kind of solution-based. So I think a lot of Black women have a problem with Kevin because of the stuff that he was putting out and the way, I guess, he made them feel, the stuff that he was saying, the whole ratings thing, you know, rating women based on their looks. He basically said value. He basically summarized value as how you look. You know, he made it quite clear that your career, what you do, and all that kind of stuff is not relevant to men. That was one of his things. Am I wrong?
can I respond, or because you said a
Of
lot and
course
I'm
you
writing
can.
some of the
Sorry,
points.
you asked
No, I
me.
love what you said. I want to push back on some of yeah. So the
Okay.
first thing,
Okay.
you said a lot of his views were misogynistic. Now, that's an accusation that many people put out, and he's actually denied that, obviously, whilst he was alive. But before, can you first define what is misogyny, and just so we can understand? Because the reason why I say that is because it's very easy for someone to say someone is. I've been accused of being misogynist. It's very easy for someone to say that someone's a misogynist
Yeah.
or misogynistic because they've said something about. They said something that a woman has disagreed with or disliked. So first, can you define what do you mean by misogynistic? Because I understand it's someone who hates or despises women.
Someone that does, yeah. So the
And then
definition of
what is it that he's actually said that is actually misogynistic?
okay, I'm not okay. Can I just also say, just make it clear that I'm talking from the perspective that a lot of black women have. This might not necessarily be my perspective wholeheartedly. I'm saying a lot of black women felt that he was misogynistic. Misogynistic, I guess by definition, is disliking women. You know, everything
Okay,
you
so
kind
if
of
you disliked one woman, does that mean you dislike women? If you said something disparaging about one woman or a few women that maybe you dislike or whatever, does that mean that you're misogynistic?
absolutely not. But it depends on how you position everything you talk about, like your whole bit. You know, if everything that you kind of say and put out there has an undertone of dislike, maybe, you know, there was a lot of talk around Kevin in his younger years not being very successful with women, being a bit of a nerd, being a bit of a geek, you know. So now he's grown, he's understood sort of life, can we say. He's now kind of in the driving seat, if you like, and it's almost like payback. That has been uh, what's the word, that's been some people's view on why Kevin was the way he is.
Yeah.
So do I think he's misogynistic? I think he definitely said some things that could be chalked up as misogynistic, but whether he was as a whole individual, I don't know if it would be fair to say that he was a completely misogynistic person, but he definitely fueled that misogynistic narrative, and for men that are misogynistic, he made it easy for them to like him and to latch onto his words. Definitely.
No, thanks for clearing it up. And just a couple of the points, I just wanted to clarify because I think you said some things that were maybe missed or lost in translation when you mentioned that he said that women, or from what I've seen of his content, when you said that he said that women who are of a certain weight, they are not high value. Now, with the whole high value thing, and again, it's not something that I necessarily ascribe. I mean, according to his classification, I'm not high value and it doesn't bother me. So I'm not really concerned, and it's his opinion. But he's got like a criteria. I mean, he didn't, from what I understand, he didn't create the term high value man, but it's something that he's used, and you can say he's popularized. So he's made it very popular, especially amongst black men on YouTube in particular. Now, with the whole high value man concept, it's based on, according to him, 6 things. You have to be earning at least £10,000 a month. You have to be earning that amount of money over at least 3-year period. Generally, he wouldn't consider someone who's in sports and entertainment to be a high value man. And he's got other couple of criteria, like in terms of he's supposed to be recognized in terms of like by other high value men as someone who's, and a lot of I would say his viewpoint on that was, I would say, definitely say from maybe a Anglo or European perspective or white perspective in terms of what is considered to be successful, but that's what he was going by, right? In terms of that is what high value, you could say a successful man is. Now, when women were calling onto his show, they were seeking that type of man. So he was basically saying, I've got a number of clients that are high value men. These are the type of things that they're looking for in a woman as a wife, not as a sexual partner, not as a casual relationship, as in a wife. Now, what he was saying is, these are the type of things that they're looking for. Generally speaking, they don't like women, or they're not looking for a wife that has maybe certain qualities. Or he will ask, what qualities that do you have that these type of men would want? Yeah. So he was, and that's something that I think, again, because people will say, that's why I wanted to kind of correct what you said when you said that women who are overweight aren't high value. He didn't say that. He was saying that women of a certain, maybe women who are overweight in his eyes, or according to his clients, high value men generally wouldn't go for those type of women, or women who've got kids. But that's his opinion, or I'm not saying it's correct or incorrect, but that's his opinion.
1,000%. Can I just jump in there? Because I know I'll forget, because I've got a brain like a sieve. You're right. he might not have said, he might have put it as this is what his clients are saying.
But
But
that's
my
his opinion,
point,
sorry, as well. I'm not going to absolve him of the blame. So that's his opinion as well. Let's say that's his opinion as well.
okay,
Sorry.
so if that's his opinion as well. So we're saying that, you know, is it wrong to have an opinion? No, it's not wrong to have an opinion. But I'm just saying the reason why, your initial question was, why do women have an issue with Kevin? The reason why is because of all these things. You've got this man that is basically sitting up here saying, you know, to be considered high value, you have to tick a certain set of criteria. Now,
Again,
as I say,
not to be considered high value, to attract a high value man, he
no,
was
but
saying.
he
There's a
also,
difference.
hold on, but wasn't there this whole thing about being regarded as a high value woman as well?
The
You
thing is,
have,
he never, not that I, again, not that I agree with it, but he never considered women to be high value unless he was, for him, it was all about the man and the man's world. And
right.
it's all about, yeah, and women are there to serve men. Not that, again, I agree with, but that's what he was, that was his positioning. So it's all about how can a woman attract a high value man. And then he used to say things like women control children and sex, but men control marriage and relationships. So if
Yeah.
a woman
And
wants a marriage or relationship, then she should try and understand what the consumer, in this case, the man wants. And if they want a high value man, and a lot of what he was saying, this is my understanding, and speaking to a number of men, he was just wanted people to have realistic expectations, both men and women. He would
there's
chastise
nothing,
men. Yeah, go on.
there's nothing wrong with having realistic expectations. I'm a realist. I completely agree. Having realistic expectations, you know, kind of keeping it, I'm trying, you know, I can't even think of the terminology. Basically, not punching above your weight or punching within your weight, you know, just considering various factors. I truly believe, yeah, you know, I don't think that's a problem. Again, you know, having an opinion is not a problem. I think what has happened with Kevin, and the reason why he's been such a quote unquote problem, is because what he's done is he's allowed certain men or a lot of men to basically pitch up and use a lot of what he has said in a almost, well, in a very negative way to justify why women ain't shit, for want of a better expression. You have a whole plethora of men that will swear by what they believe is Kevin's principles, but the way they're acting is not right, Habib. And you know the type of men we're talking about here. Obviously, I'm not saying that was Kevin's target audience. That may well not have been his target audience, but because of the nature of what he was spouting and sharing and that kind of thing. Sorry, I was just reading as well. Because of the nature
Yeah,
of
some of the
what he
comments are
was,
interesting. Go on.
yeah, because of the nature of what he was saying, you're gonna attract men that may not have felt they had a voice or may not have felt seen even. Do you know what I mean? I'm not
I
gonna
hear you,
start.
but yeah, I hear you. And again, we'll let people. So again, just for the benefit of anyone listening, I'm speaking to Cheryl, who is Cheryl's World now, isn't it? It's not Cheryl Blue.
Yeah, sure.
Cheryl's World, who is a London-based sex and wellness educator and content creator. She's also a podcast host, amongst other things, and she's on a journey to become a psychotherapist. So we're speaking about Kevin Samuels's legacy, who was a image consultant and a well-known but controversial YouTuber. He spoke about dating and relationships, especially within the Black American community. He had a global audience. He appealed to both men and women. And one of the things that for me was really interesting about him was the fact that he was able to attract the attention of many men, because like I said in the beginning, that I don't know of many men who speak about like relationships that other men are willing to listen to. Not women, I'm talking about especially black men. So he was one of very few, whether he was a misogynist or what have you, he was one of few men that, and I'm speaking from men from different ages, from 21 to 35 to 55, married, unmarried, divorced, what have you. So it wasn't just like you can say incels, it was intellectuals, professionals, people from the streets. There's all sorts of men. So that's why, rather than just kind of like ridiculing him, I'm just interested in that. What was it about? Because for me, there's some takeaways I thought was really brilliant from his presentation. He was able to create a show. Because think about it, to create a show where you're speaking for like 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours every other day. And sometimes you'll be speaking by himself or like doing a monologue for like an hour and a half. You need to have a bit of charisma and skill in that. And even just looking at his evolution from when he started, like even speaking to men however many years ago, like 6 years ago, to like now. He even changed his delivery, and like with the sound effects, he's created the show. For me, he was a bit of a character. So some of what he said, I took it as entertainment. Some of it, yes, was a bit distasteful. And some of it was very insightful, and some of what he said I've definitely learned from and respected. I respected his hustle and what he was doing in terms of helping others. So I'm not someone that's going to, because I disagree with some things that he said, I'll say that he should be cancelled or he's this and that. But likewise, I was never his biggest fan, but I was definitely not a hater of him, so to speak. So, yeah. So one thing also, go on.
I just want to say, I second that. You know, you have to give credit where credit's due. And yes, he created a platform, he built a following, he built a cult following, right? As I said, I don't agree with a lot of what he said, but you can't take away the facts from the facts. I just think that it's important to understand just why women may have had an issue with him. I think for the most part, people can say, yes, you know, you built up and you did this and you did that. And in and amongst all of the negative, there are some positives. I think anybody can see that. They can see that some of what he said was bang on point. You know, he made some very valid points. But then you know what happens when you make valid points in and amongst a lot of what a lot of people see as bullshit? It gets lost. People don't see you for the positiveness that you want to put out. They only see when you're sitting down there saying, a woman needs to be coachable. A woman needs to be teachable. A woman needs to not have any children. A woman needs to let the man lead. A woman needs to, you know, he's reading off all these things that, okay, to a certain extent, if you want to talk about masculinity and femininity and all of that kind of stuff, those things do kind of come into play. But again, it's how you present it. If someone is telling you, women should be doing this, man should be doing that, you're going to have a problem. And that's what's basically happened. He's created division where there didn't need to be division, in my opinion.
Some could say that maybe we needed that strong message, because a lot of people criticize him for his tone or the way he presented himself. Now, if he came across as not as harsh and forthright as he was, I don't think he would have been as popular as he is. And he's created, and from him, a lot of people, he's kind of birthed a number of YouTubers, both male and female. And you've got so many people kind of copied his platform or been inspired by his platform, and they are speaking about relationships. Not only people that's on YouTube, but even people in relationships and people that are married. So you could argue that because what he was presenting, and I'm going to touch on some of what you said, is some of those expectations or criteria that he was saying that a high value man wants, a number of men that follow him, even though they weren't, according to his definition, a high value man, they still had these beliefs or expectations. But maybe they weren't confident enough to vocalize that with a woman that they're seeing or their partner. But he was speaking on behalf of a number of men. And I'm not going to deny that. Whether I agree or disagree, I'm not going to deny that he's, again, and it's funny what you mentioned about how a lot of men felt maybe inspired by him and were saying, using some of these damaging rhetoric. The funny thing is I can listen to him. I listen to him, and the things that I took away from him might be very different from another man. So I can listen to a 3-hour show, and I loved like the points where he mentioned about the importance of men having sexual discipline, and that's something that a lot of men would struggle with. Now I can relate to that. Now another man can listen to him and they can disregard that, and they just want to hear about him trashing women, and they find that funny. Do you understand? But the reality is
that, though, Habib, that is exactly my point. Where he's saying there are gems in what he said. A lot of that got lost because the overall...
Did it get lost?
For a lot of people, not for everyone, of course not. But
the thing is, if he just spoke about the gems, he would have become like a preacher. This is why it's delicate. Like, when you're just speaking about what men should do, right? You're kind of like preaching. People don't like listening to preachers.
True.
But when you add entertainment and humor, and I'm not saying it's but controversial things, people will listen in. So in a way, so while I saw it, and that's why I thought he was a marketing genius. He was putting in the gems and talking about the importance of the black family, the importance of men providing and getting to a certain level, X, Y, and Z. And also you speak about expectations that maybe men have of women. But he knew that to deliver all of that just by itself, no one is not going to resonate with the masses because it's going to come across as you're
And I
preaching.
accept that. I do
But if you
accept that.
yeah,
But
go on. Sorry, go
I
on.
accept that. I accept all of that. I completely agree. You know, we
Yeah.
cannot deny marketing and how it works. And we all know negativity sells over positivity. We know that. You know, infamy before fame, right? I mean, well, fame is, you know, off the back of infamy anyway. But I'm just saying, to understand why there's such a negative kind of outpouring towards Kevin. This is what I'm saying. These are the reasons why. And I think there was someone in the chat that just said that he didn't say, when I was reading off all the different factors, he said that women or high value men want from a woman to be feminine.
Anyone wants to jump on, if you send me a request, sorry to cut you off, if someone wants to jump on and join the conversation, send me a request. We're more than happy to, especially if any woman wants to jump on, by all means, because before I open this out to anyone else who wants to join, because I've got a couple of guys who've messaged me who they're keen to join, but
I bet those guys want to join.
I don't want it to come across as like we're attacking anyone who disagrees with him, or because I think a lot of, maybe because again we've got a blind spot on where men, whether male privilege or what have you, that we can see a number of men, even though we can eat the meat and spit out the bones, whereas
I'll bet you can.
Maybe that's not the case with some of his detractors, but there are a number of women that I know of who did appreciate his forthrightness. So it wasn't like only men follow him and women dislike him, but it's just for me, like, again, he's one of, and I said this when we spoke last year, when I asked you, can you name other, of that level, male figures that other men listen to when it comes to when they're speaking about relationships and women, and it's very few. So that's why, for me, that's why he's a very important figure. Yeah.
No, I agree, and I think it's always about the ones that can create the most uproar that get seen. Let's be real. But sorry, I just wanted to finish my point about the different factors that he listed. I can't remember who it was that said it, but he absolutely did say these are the things that they should be. It was one of the videos that you actually sent to me, Habib, in which he said it, and I was just like, what in God's name? This man is really, really... I just thought, the thing is, again, he could have listed all those things, and he could have made, several points about what high value men might regard as desirable, because that's what it is. It's about desirability, right? Hey, Dennis, how you doing?
So how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Let me just finish this point because I'll forget. But it doesn't mean... I mean, these are the points. So what? See, I've lost what I was going to say. These are the points he was making about what men might deem as desirable. Having a woman that's coachable, having a woman that basically, in a nutshell, basically listens, does what she's told, plays her position as a woman, and lets a man be a man. That was the bottom line, right? And I get it. But you've got to understand, if you're going to say that, and if you're going to say that in and amongst this rating system that you've got going on, talking about which women high value men don't see, you've got to be able to understand why that doesn't sit well. Whether you agree with it or not, there's going to be a mass or a huge group of people that have a real issue with that. And you can't argue. You can't argue with someone feeling uneasy by hearing someone talking like that.
Okay, Dennis, do you want to share your... No, well said. Dennis, do you want to share your... Oh, so someone actually added before, so ladies first. Someone asked, so this lady's actually mentioned a couple of good points. She said basically, what's wrong with that?
What's wrong with what? What, him saying what he wants?
Yeah, like what's wrong? Because again, you're not like if you're saying, if you've got this opinion and you're not appealing to the masses, I mean, it's not going to, not everyone's going to like it. What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. I'm not saying you're not entitled to your opinion. I'm saying if you're going to make statements like that, you have to understand where the hate is going to come from. This is going to fuel hate in people. That's what I'm saying. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. You're 100% entitled, but you cannot put your head in the sand and say, this is just my opinion. I don't know why people don't agree with me. Why is there so much hate? You've got to understand
It's that girl, JD, she said another comment. Men want peace, be that.
It's what, sorry?
Men want peace, be that. Like listening to your man. Do you want to come on? Because I don't want to speak on... She said, men want peace, be that.
Men want peace. Listen, I'll give my man peace. That's okay. But you know something?
Not you personally.
I know. I'm just saying. I'll give him all the peace he needs. That's okay. But again, I'm just saying, we have to understand that people are going to take exception to a lot of what he says. It was controversial. That was the name of his game, controversy.
Was it effective though?
I think it did bits, definitely did bits. I think it definitely got conversation sparked. It made people talk about the black family. It made people talk about black relationships, black loves, what's happening in the black community. It definitely did that. And that's
Sorry, Dennis, you want to, sorry, like when you finish your point.
That's it, sorry. I'll just go on forever, you know me.
Yeah, Dennis, you want to chime in? Oh, he's got dodgy Wi-Fi. Is it me or he? Or...
The circle go like this.
So he's asked to join. Let me see. I don't know. Let me just accept.
But yeah, I think the same lady said, what is wrong with being an agreeable woman? There is nothing wrong with being an agreeable woman if that's what you kind of choose to do. I understand in relationships there are dynamics, you know, and yeah, quite often it's a dominant, submissive kind of thing. You know, you kind of back and you forth. Most of the time, the woman, you know what, I'm not going there because, you know, that's going to get me into trouble. But this is the thing.
If you know, like when you mentioned about some of these issues, like, I mean, some of these points where you said women should be coachable, agreeable, X, Y, Z. If these are what a traditional man or a high value man wants, and there's a woman that wants that type of man, is there anything wrong with that?
No, absolutely not. That's what I'm saying. We're all on the same page. It's fine.
Yeah, so why is there uproar? Because again, he's not speaking to everyone. So a lot of for me, when I listen to him, a lot of his views are traditional views that I would hear from a number of family members, especially for older generation. Now, a lot of people who are maybe you know, feminists or modernists who believe in like a 50-50 relationship, they don't subscribe to that. But there are a number of men who still kind of want this traditional, they don't mind being a traditional man, but they also want a traditional woman. Now, where there's a disconnect is where maybe men aren't vocalizing these are what their expectations are. Or are you saying that it's wrong to have these expectations?
I'm not saying it's wrong, but Habib, I feel like it's got to come from a place of genuinity. Like, you cannot be, quote unquote, a traditional man because you want to feel like that man, if you understand what I'm saying. You genuinely feel traditional. It's not because you want to have a relationship with a woman in such a way that kind of, okay, maybe substitutes you in other areas. You know, you might be lacking somewhere else. Well, it happens. Certain men lack in certain areas in life, so they use their relationships and how they operate with their woman as a way of kind of leveling things in their life. That's wrong. But if you're genuinely traditional and you genuinely have traditional views and you genuinely meet a woman that is on the same page, I have no issue with that. None at all. But again, if you're someone like Kevin and you're putting these ideas out and your opinions and everything together with all of the stuff that you know is going to ruffle some feathers, then you have to be prepared to take the backlash. It's not, as someone said as well, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion. You can't please everybody. And that's just it.
Well said. Well said. Dennis, do you want to chime in with your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, can you hear me okay, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was obviously a decisive figure. I mean, he said a lot of things that I agreed with and some I completely didn't agree with. But what I was more interested in, I wanted to know if it was more to do with his delivery or his message in terms of the uproar that's affected most of the community. Because what he was saying was, yes, you can consider it to be offensive, consider it to be insulting, but the message in there and the undertone and some of the stuff that he was saying, these are some of the conversations or topics I know men have away from, say, the most popular platform, shall we say, WhatsApp conversation, general conversation. So I think for me, he said a lot of stuff that I think you have to be smart enough to be able to digest what he's saying to an extent where you can split between what he's trying to do in terms of what's entertaining, what he's trying to do in terms of what's actually a structured message, and what he's trying to do just to kind of go viral. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm trying to figure out, obviously, that you and Cheryl touched in the beginning, he passed in the negative messages. Is it more to do with how he was saying it as opposed to what he was saying? You know,
I think it's definitely to do with the delivery. Definitely.
Was it more to do, because if he would have said to some, obviously the clip that made him go viral when he said to the woman, look, you're not Beyonce, you're a 2. You're this.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that delivery was harsh.
Very.
But if then as a man, if he then changed his angle and then changed his tone and delivery, number one, he'll be pandering. Say if he would have said, actually, you know what? I don't think you're Beyonce. I think if we take you down a couple of notches, I think you're more of a number X. And I think that if you've done this and lost weight, you get my next. See, now that's pandering. So I think he got to the stage where he'd been repeating the same message so often that he decided to become direct. Think about the comment that he said to the man that called up, and he said to the man, you don't know if you've got a big penis. You clearly don't have a big penis. You can't satisfy your wife. You know, you can't satisfy your wife. You need to lose weight. As men, we it was hard.
But even that was cringy. Even that was like, oh my God.
And I mean, so it's cringy. So what I get from that, it's the delivery which has impacted a lot of people. I mean, it's delivery for me which has impacted a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of gems that you both said that you can take away from it. You can actually learn from it. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's a lot of stuff that he said should be, you know, celebrated to that extent, but there are kind of like hidden things that we can take away. And the most important thing I think that he was trying to get with the audience was really trying to nail down, especially when he talked to women, was about accountability. So if you watch some of his shows from the beginning, his demeanor and energy levels changed, where he had to repeat the same things over and over again. So as it got to the point where it then became viral, it was just more of a case of he's now not going to pander. He's going to come to you direct. The delivery is going to be harsh, but the message is very much kind of, if you want person X, I am telling you what you need, or what this person would want you to bring to the table, so to speak. So I think there's that kind of delivery, the message, and the tone. So I think if you can separate some of it and kind of dig a bit deeper into it, you'll be able to see there are some kind of hidden gems in it. And I think my biggest question is, did he lie?
The thing is, Dennis, as humans, generally we don't do that. Generally we take everything as one. So especially, and someone just said in the chat that he was talking to women like you would talk to a man. Very valid point, because imagine you guys are basically saying, you know, these are conversations that maybe you might have had in WhatsApp conversations, or along the lines, maybe not as harsh, but, you know, along the same sort of lines, right? So the language and the kind of the discussion points is very is understood amongst men. Same like women, we have a certain language, let's say, that women have amongst themselves that they recognize and understand, which men, if brought into those circles, would be like, what the frig are these lot chatting about? It makes no sense, because it's something that's understood between yourselves. So Kevin's come with this language that might be understood by men, and you're delivering that to women. You automatically, okay. Pandering, you mentioned pandering. No, I don't think anyone should pander. I think, again, have your opinion, hold your opinion. But it just goes back to what I was saying before. You have to be prepared to accept what's going to come with that. If you're going to speak from your chest, which I believe you should, then know that you're going to get a backlash. I don't really think Kevin cared too much about that anyway.
And you mentioned something interesting there in terms of his tone was, and his delivery was as if he was talking, when he was talking to women, was as if he was talking to men. So one of the things I wanted to say was that as men, if whenever we're in those conversations, or we're speaking to women or groups of women and hearing what women say, let's say we're talking about preference or style, and women can be like, I want a guy that's 6'6" and wants this and wants that. As men, we've learned and understood to say, okay, that's your opinion, that's what you want. We can digest that information, as harsh as it may be, take it away and process it. Not to say women can't. Do you understand? So what he was saying is that I'm not going to say this in a way that you want me to say it, so it softens it. I'm going to give it to you as harsh as you need, because it needs to hit home. Do you see what I'm saying?
Maybe
so
that might well be the truth, Dennis. But the fact of the matter is, if a man is telling a woman whatever in the harshest possible way, that is never going to go down well. The same way if it was role reversal. If a woman was to tell a man about his clout, he's not going to accept that either. So it's about, you know, I guess, tailoring stuff to, it's not about taking away from the truth. It's not about minimizing what you're saying, but it's about understanding your audience. And this is why I say Kevin's audience wasn't necessarily for women. It was for the guys. Like, let's be real. His audience was driven towards men, because he was speaking in a language that men can relate to more than women. Yes, some women get it. And yes, some of us can see some of the points that he made that, you know, may well have been valid. But overall, he wasn't speaking to women.
And okay. No,
I don't think, I mean, am I wrong? Do you feel like he was talking to women, guys?
I think his message was tailored for women, but the delivery...
Oh, really?
No, I do. But I think the delivery in terms of what women expect wasn't to the tone that you'd want it to be.
Okay.
So the tone was him saying, you know what, like I say, I want to deliver this to you because you're not hearing me say it in a softer manner. I'm going to come to you harsh. But also, what I also want to go back and say is that I think this whole rise of kind of the social media and relationship gurus, I think Abib, you and I spoke about this, where I think someone coined it online, is that revenge of the nerds. So for me, I could digest a lot of this online YouTube relationship information as people that, what I say, haven't been in the trenches growing up in terms of experiencing relationships or being able to deal with women in terms of having relationships. So they're now reached a particular level and plateau. So it's very much kind of now, I'm going to give you everything that I maybe wish I had experienced. So maybe they would have been book heavy or studious in their careers. So now it's about me enjoying what I want to do. And I think for me, I could separate that. Okay, this now guy has reached the level where he's gone global. He's now having attention. He's now having women, you know, go on his live, celebrity. So I'm smart enough to be able to separate that. This now is getting to the stage of entertainment, but also smart enough to say that some messages are relevant, some completely disrespectful, and this I'm going to disregard, without having to be, without having to get so offended that I believe that the passing is a celebration. Do you understand? So it's about trying to have an equal balance in terms of the viewpoint.
Yeah.
I agree with that, because yes, it's, you know, it's funny you said that, Dennis, because I was thinking the same thing, because with Kevin Samuels and a couple of other like prominent male YouTubers that speak about relationships, what they've realized is that by speaking about controversial or being like the villain, you get more people you get more interest, and obviously you can build your platform. So they kind of play on this character, they play on this role. And then there are others similar to what Dennis was talking about, like the revenge of the nerds, who maybe socially awkward or didn't really get much attention from women growing up, and then they've got to a stage where they now become successful, that women are coming to them. They want to kind of like, they've become like this terrible character, but they want to kind of teach women a lesson who previously turned them away. But I can still listen to some of their messaging if there's some value in what they're saying. It might not necessarily be in relation to women, but it might be in terms of how they built their business, in terms of their marketing. That's why I think maybe because again, with men, we're not being affected by some of their rhetoric. We can disregard, okay, that's nonsense. That's like Kevin Samuels will talk about like women not requiring an orgasm, or it's not important. And I said we spoke about that as well offline. That's crazy, but it doesn't mean I'll cancel him and not listen to him. I think that's totally nonsense. Or he will talk about that, you know, high value men, they don't, they exercise options and they pay for escorts, and that's normal. Now, again, that might be normal amongst high value men. Number one, I'm not a high value man according to his criteria.
I don't feel that's normal.
No, but I'm saying that maybe, even if that is, okay, let's be honest, prostitution or men soliciting the services of sex workers, right? That's common. I'm not saying majority of men, but that's common, especially amongst celebrities or people that have got money. That is quite common. I'm not going to deny that. Now, if he says in his inner world, because obviously he works with a lot of people, high executives in the corporate world, that's what they get up to. And I've worked with a number of people that, and they do go to sex workers. So I'm not going to deny that does exist, or sex tourism. Now, if someone is saying it in terms of it's a reality, that's one thing. But if you're trying to normalize it, I think that's when it's problematic. And that's where I think, that's where I was like, I disagreed with that approach. But it doesn't mean I can't listen to anything that he says. Absolutely. Even though I may feel, do you know what I mean? So I just think it's like it's just having the balance of, okay, that I disagree with, that is waffle, or that is he's playing the villain, or he's playing the character, and others he's actually dropping gems, or it's just entertainment. I look at it like it's a reality show, to be honest.
Okay, can I ask you then, do you think he empowered black women in any way?
That's a great question.
No, let me rephrase that. Do you
That's a great question. No, that's a great question.
The reason why I wanted to just add to that is because the easy answer would be yes, because he was trying to advise women on how to get, have better relationships and how to move forward with men and how to make themselves more desirable. That would be the easy answer. But aside from how they would look, how they appear in the sense of being desirable, do you think he empowered the average black woman by what he said in the stuff that he put out?
I think he did, and the reason why is that he empowered. I think he empowered both men and women, but women in regards to your question, because he was opening the door and letting people know, like, the mindset of certain men who think like that, who they may feel is the person that they want to be with. Do you understand? So if what he used to say is, if you want this type of man, this is what it comes with. This is what it comes with, generally speaking. So you might get the lifestyle.
Did Kevin regard
Sorry?
himself as high value?
Yes.
Okay.
But he was mainly speaking on behalf of like his clients. But he was saying, like, okay, you might have the lifestyle that you crave, but what comes with that is that you might not see me as much because I'm very busy with my job. I might have other women on the go because I've got all these options and I feel entitled to multiple women. I'm not saying that's right, but he's just explaining that what you kind of maybe look at as the go-to guy, the life is not as great as what you think it is. Did you understand what I'm getting at? The same way. So that's why I think it's refreshing, because rather than painting this picture that like these high value men or these successful men are the most romantic, are the most emotionally mature, are the most emotionally intelligent, all of the things that a woman wants ticking, he's like saying that's not going to be the case. You might get the lifestyle, but they might be socially unavailable. They might not be caring about your sexual satisfaction. So again, it's a case for you to pick and choose what you want. The same way as a man, if you're saying, yeah, go on.
I would say that, but that is not, I don't think that would necessarily be attributed only to high value men. I feel like that could be even the average Joe, you know, this could be men across the board. So to kind of position it as, okay, well, if you're a high value man, then basically you shouldn't expect too much. You should expect to maybe be one of several women. You shouldn't expect to see me as often as possible. I don't think that's necessarily a high value thing.
Well, the average man won't be able to provide the lifestyle that the high value man can.
So, okay,
well, let's just say a millionaire. Let's just say a millionaire. A millionaire can provide a lifestyle, like in terms of like that a person that's making £30,000 can't.
I get that. I get that.
So what he's saying is that this person that can give you all of the trips that you want to the Maldives and go and not have them to work. What comes with those type of men, generally speaking, is maybe a sense of entitlement that now they feel that they own you.
Right.
And he says that's one of the problems.
Therein lies.
That's what he's saying. So it's not yeah. So go on.
I was just going to say, it's this sense of entitlement, and that kind of, I guess, encompasses everything that I think a lot of women have a problem with when it comes to the messages that Kevin is pushing out and what's been received by a lot of men. This sense of entitlement. I mean, Kevin called a woman a used vehicle. Right.
Okay.
Right. Okay. It's quite funny. Right. I'm
not laughing. I'm not laughing.
I find things like that funny, but I also see the seriousness in it. Someone could take serious offense to that, you know, and then on top of all the other things that have been said, you know what I mean? It's,
I think
I'm not. Go on, sorry, Dennis.
No, what I was going to say was in terms of just to add into what Cheryl was saying. I think I think it's very important, I guess, even when I'm speaking to some of my female friends, is that you get a group of men who can digest his content and information and take it for what it is, be able to separate in between what they believe is good advice versus what they believe is clearly nonsense. But then you've got a core group of men who have, as Abib said, started up the YouTube channels and what I'll probably call the Kevin Samuels Night Riders, who are kind of agreeing on every single point. And you get another group of men who are kind of fleeting in between. So I think one conversation I had with the female friends is that it's your job to be able to distinguish who these men are. So if you're there in a dating scene and you say you don't want a guy that has the same viewpoints as Kevin Samuels, that's what you need to do in terms of weeding that out. Because every man is going to have a different perspective and a different agreement in some of his viewpoints. So it's about what can you do to identify that particular man. The same way a woman may want a high value man, or a man might have preferences for a particular type of woman. You have to go and do your due diligence. So if you know you're seeing a man has a particular viewpoint, it's up to you to make that assumption whether or not you want to be with that guy, whether or not you agree or disagree with his viewpoint. And I think, going back, because I think his narrative on high value for me was very warped, in terms of high value was, obviously you have to earn X amount of money over a certain amount of, X amount of money, say $1 million, etc. But then he would change his narrative where it would say, well, a sports person that's age 19, that's earning £80,000 a week, can't be high value. So he would go in between. So stuff like that, I didn't agree with. And so it's very important when you're listening to his information or replaying back his videos, you can be able to kind of break that down yourself, kind of come to that clear assumption. But I'm more interested. A lot of people
don't have time for that though.
But this is it. This way it goes back down to, this way it goes back down to accountability. you need to be able to come to your own decision in terms of understanding the information you're receiving and breaking it down. It can't be a case of we don't have time to take it in. It just, no, you need to be able to break it down. And it's the account is on you. If I'm watching a show, I am responsible for how I receive that information, whether I'm offended or not. Yeah. I am not responsible. It's on me. I'm completely accountable for how I process that information and what I do with that information. I can't just say this should be given to me in a 10-second bite size. No, I'm going to go away, process, and then come back with my own analysis and give it back. It can't just be a case of someone needs to say something in a particular tone or message that I like to receive it. There's lots of things that's happening that I don't agree with in terms of, so I'm sensible enough to go away, break it down, and come back and make that assumption myself. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of stuff that was offensive, and I get what your point, Cheryl, about the way he spoke to some of the women. Some of the stuff he said, it's like, yeah, that's crossing the line. I don't think he had, sorry, I'll be my last point. I don't think he had a responsibility in terms of understanding what kind of that whole kind of digital bullying in cyberspace can do to some of the women he spoke to. That was one of my biggest concerns. The message that may take away.
One thing I would say is that, just to piggyback on what Dan said, he was like, even like there was clear contradictions that if you listen to him in his narrative, because he was playing the performance. It was performative, right? So when he's talking about a high value man, it's based on what men considers to be a high value person, right? High value man. But when he's talking about a high value woman in terms of her looks, again, it's what men says. But he doesn't ask women, what do you consider to be a high value man? So,
well, there you go.
Which again, you can see it's a contradiction, because a lot of like athletes, sports stars, they will be considered to be highly desirable, high value men in women's eyes, but he will discount them intentionally because he's speaking about people or men that he identifies with, are people from the corporate world. And let's be honest, how many women are thinking about, attracting, I don't know, like the head of marketing of Apple? No one cares generally about those type of roles, but that's the high value men he's talking about. He's not talking about like a Chris Brown or like an Usher or what have you, that generally they'll have like hundreds of thousands, not millions of women wanting to be with them. He's discounting them altogether. And it plays in, so when he's even doing his argument, he's asking, what do you, how many, he'll ask women, he's setting them up, so he'll ask them, how many children do you want? How many this do you want? So he naturally, women will say maybe 3 or 4. Where do you live? Maybe LA, so the rent is by X amount. So therefore you need about £750,000 a year to just to survive. Therefore you need a man that's earning X amount. So they're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Therefore you need like a high value man. So then all of a sudden they might not even be thinking they want a man that earns 750,000, but because he'll ask some questions that, like, in terms of what do you want aspirationally in terms of for the future, he will say that only this type of man can give you that. And these type of men generally work in corporate America or corporate whatever, and this is their mentality. Did you understand what I'm getting at? So that's why, again, you can listen to what he's saying and realize, okay, he's actually playing a game here.
Oh, definitely.
Not everything he says, you take it as
definitely
as
playing
gospel.
a game, and I think that just kind of feeds into a lot of people's discomfort when it comes to him. Yes, okay, I accept both of what you're saying in the sense that, sometimes you've got to listen beyond the words and try and understand what's really kind of happening. But when you're dealing with what's happening on social media, let's be real, like, unless you're really into something, you're not necessarily going to give it that level of attention to really try and psychoanalyze what he really meant. Okay, he said that, but well, maybe he meant that. You're just going to take what someone says on face value a lot of the time. People generally do. And again, as men and women, I think men and women are very similar, but we're very different in a lot of ways. His language was very much understood by men, or was more understood by men. There were women, obviously, that kind of fed into it, bought into it, loved him and all the rest of it. But the problem or the hate or the dislike definitely came from women, because they're just taking what they see and what they hear. They're not thinking beyond the words and the bigger picture. You sent me a clip, Habib, on Girls Talk. And the girls on that panel were basically, I guess you could kind of say they are a classic sample of how people viewing Kevin Samuels would be. I think all of them said that in and amongst all of his nonsense, for want of a better expression, there were gems. But ultimately, he wasn't pushing out anything particularly positive. This is what they were saying. He wasn't pushing out anything that was instantly deemed as positive. Instantly. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, we're listening to you and we're hearing you.
I think he wasn't selling. I think he just wasn't selling dreams. I think he wasn't selling dreams. He wasn't selling dreams like many. He wasn't selling dreams and hopes that you see a lot of men in the mainstream media when they're speaking about relationships do. He was just quite, I think he was brutally honest. There are other, he was brutally honest because, again, why is it that a lot of men understood what he was saying, but a lot of women, because again, he's speaking about, okay, if you're a woman, again, he's not saying that you cannot find love. He's not saying that you won't be able to find a spouse or a partner. He was just saying that maybe your expectation, you need to consider them, or maybe look at men who are, maybe you don't deem to be on your level. Because one thing that many people don't really talk about is that the women who consider themselves to be above men, I mean, consider themselves to be like women that's maybe earning X amount of money, they consider men to be earning less than them as not on their level. He was basically saying maybe you should consider them as possible like marital partners.
I think a lot.
Is that probably? What do you think? What do you think about that?
What that he spoke to? Sorry.
No, so what do you think about his argument that, like, he will say that generally women are hypergamous, like women generally want a man that's either on their same socioeconomic level or someone that's higher, generally a man that's higher, right? And if he's saying rather than just looking at a man that's higher, maybe you should consider a man that socially, economically is beneath you, but he can still, but he still can be a compatible, like.
I actually think, and this is genuine, I think most women would be happy to look at someone that is not necessarily quote unquote high value. I think, again, this is something that I don't know whether it's just men and their insecurities. I want to just throw it out there because I don't know where this idea has come from that women only want men that can make a certain amount of money. You can't see women out here making money for themselves. If there's women out here earning 100,000 a year, why do you need to have a man that's going to make 100,000 a year and put you in a lifestyle that you're already in? Yes, it's nice to have someone on the same level as you, just for obvious reasons, so you can both move in the same way. But ultimately, I don't necessarily think that women only look for, yes, there are going to be some women that will obviously, they just want the easy life. Do you know what I'm saying? But I think that's a really old, played out kind of narrative that women only want. That's almost saying that most women are gold diggers. In a nutshell.
Say it into jet. So I don't think it's to say women are gold. I think
no, it's almost like
no, but
like,
I think
you're saying a woman's got to have a high value man to have her living a lifestyle that she's unaccustomed to or wants to be accustomed to. That's suggesting that she can't get it for herself, which ultimately means she's gold digging.
No. I think now I get what you're saying, but for me, I think we as men, we've been taught from young. We know that women have standards, right? There's a bare minimum. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. I grew up in a house with 4 sisters. The message they got from my parents growing up was, make sure you find a man that has a nice car, has a great job, earns lots of money, is safe, secure, all of that stuff, is into religion, spirituality. That was the message they got. The message I got was, you better get yourself a good job, you earn lots of money, you have a career that's driven, and you better get yourself a woman that's beautiful and have kids and settle down. So they got one message when I was continually getting another message. So when a man's trying to strive to get X, Y, Z, it's because we know what you've been programmed to aim for. If a woman that I'm dating is earning 150,000 and I'm earning 20,000, I don't care if I'm giving her the most intimate kunyaza love ever. That's not lasting.
That might be all she needs, Dennis. That might be all she needs.
It is not lasting. And we as men, we get that. So his message was very much kind of saying like, what he was getting back is that can a woman shoot down lower to the socio-economic scale? As men, we know that. We know that's absolutely.
I disagree. I disagree that I think that's wrong to say that. I agree with you, Dennis. Yes, women are taught, you know, it's kind of like the fairy tale ending, isn't it? Right? But the reality is for most women, especially women that are on their grind or want to be on their grind, want to be able to acquire things for themselves. It's not about having a man that is necessarily making more money so that they can keep you. Yes, you want to have someone, I think for the most part, people want someone that is on the same level as them for obvious reasons. Like I said, so you can move in certain ways together. Because, I mean, you know, it's like a guy. If he's the one that's always coughing up the money, after a while, he's going to get tired of that. Do you know what I'm saying? Especially if he's not, okay, his pocket ain't that far. All right, he's earning a good wage, but ultimately, if he had a woman that was on a similar wave, it's going to enhance him rather than kind of just, do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
So I think for Kevin to say that, I think this is part of the problem why a lot of women had issues with him as well. Another one of the reasons why is because of this, you're kind of fueling those men that feel like they're just being taken for what they've got as well. And then, as you said, you've got the men that might not be as high value, average brothers that are out here that maybe they in themselves can't fulfill that role of being the high value man. So then that becomes an insecurity. So then you've got Kevin over here saying that, well, you know, if you want to be that and if you want to have that, then, and it kind of gives them something to kind of almost.
But the thing,
well, before you go, I've got one question. I know there's some people that want to join as well. My question is
so I'm really
no, it's instant. So my question is, let's say you and your girlfriend, you go out, your girlfriend meets a guy as an example, right? And but you're not there, you go home and then you find out your girl is dating some guy. I'm just interested in what are the kind of the core questions you ask your friend, being honest.
We cannot tell you that, Dennis. We cannot tell you that.
No, nothing rude. Just what are the core questions, the first kind of your top 2, 3, 4 questions you ask your friend about the guy?
Well, I guess one would be like, how does he look? What does he do? Obvious questions, you know. So what does he look like? What does he do? Where does he live? Does he have a nice house? Right? Let's be honest. Maybe not the house part, but it might be what area is he from.
It would be more like career driven, right? Kind of trying to get that socio-economical.
I think it's more about viewpoint. Kind of gaining an understanding for the type of brother rather than deciding whether he's high value, if that's what you're driving.
No. This not to do with high value. This is more kind of trying to get a 360 viewpoint. So forget high value. Some of the core questions, correct me if I'm would be, what does he do for a living? Where does he work? What is his friends like? Does he own his house? Etc. etc. Now, from a man's perspective, let's say Habib meets a woman that he's dating. The first thing I'm going to ask Habib is, what does she look like? Right? Being honest, he'll tell me, oh, she looks like this. The questions that I would, but the questions that I wouldn't ask, where does she work? Not because I don't care. As a man, it doesn't interest us. Whether it's Starbucks or IBM, Apple, don't care. The second question, if Habib's getting serious with her, is going to be, what does she offer you that you're missing? Like this is what in his crazy messages Kevin Samuel was trying to get across, where it would go ham. The second question a man would ask is nothing to do with status, nothing to do with financial gain. It would be like, what does she look like? What does she offer you that's making you happy? And not in those words, but is she the one? Right? That's how a man would have that conversation, where a woman, as you more or less said, it's more to do with, well, what does he do? Where does he work? It's that, and that's why men then say, right, I need to get to X level to strive to get X, Y, Z in order to be able to have, this is not me, by the way, the pick of the field, so that I'm in that looking down type of environment. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, can I say something? I think,
we also did ask, what does he look like? Can
I say something? Yeah, I think we don't need to, I don't think Kevin Samuels, although he was a great, marketing person and very articulate, he wasn't that powerful, as in, he didn't say things that were revolutionary to men.
Oh no, definitely.
The whole idea was, because what Dennis was just talking about, because I wanted to say the same thing. Did you ever watch Chris Rock's Netflix special, Tambourine? I think it was a Tambourine, and he was mentioning, I'm not going to do justice to the joke, but he was basically saying, when women get together, if they've met like a really nice guy with their female friend, exactly what Dennis said. I was just about to mention it, honestly. The first question he was saying that women will ask is, what does he do? If it's the reverse, when men get together, and if one of the guys said that you've met a really nice girl that he wants to take seriously, his male friends, the first question they'll ask is, what does she look like? So what Kevin Samuels was basically articulating is that, again, in terms of dating or relationship, the value that he was saying that generally women place on men, not to say that looks aren't important, he said the most important thing, generally speaking, not for every woman, but generally, is his earning potential, his ability to provide financially, so he can offer security for her, because that's more important than arguably anything else. But looks and other stuff does come into it. But he was saying with men, what they place like the most value when they're determining like a marital partner or is her looks. That's what he was saying. That's basically what he's articulating. Now, again, it doesn't mean that men aren't interested in a woman's academic career or her status. But generally speaking, if a man's really attracted to a woman and if she fulfills his other criteria, she could be working, and this is no disrespect, in McDonald's, and he will still take her as his wife. Whereas if the situation were reversed, and you've got a woman who is highly successful, like she's a lawyer, I don't know, like an accountant or whatever, would she marry a man that's working at McDonald's, even if he looks like, I don't know, Idris Elba, Tyson Beckford? How many, not to sleep with, to marry? How many of those women will take him as a husband? And some women will say, oh, if he's got ambition. Forget about ambition. He's going to stay at McDonald's working £6 an hour, making £18,000 a year. How many of those highly successful women will take that man, even if he's really attractive, he's her type, he gives her everything that she wants, like sexually, I mean, but he's not able to financially provide for it? How many women will take him seriously as a husband? Do you, honestly speaking, Cheryl, please answer that question.
I'm going to be honest.
So you're laughing. So you're laughing. That's what...
It's just the way you set the whole thing up just made me laugh, because it just made me think of like so many people and situations. But anyway, that's by the by. Yeah, you know what? In all honesty, I think it does, and this is genuine, it does depend on the woman. It depends on where she is at in her life. It depends on what is important to her, you know, and it depends on, yeah, what she deems as important. I really do believe that.
Generally, we're not speaking about, we know that there's exceptions to the rule, generally speaking. Let's be honest. And your laughter said it all. Like, let's be honest. You laughed.
I laughed because of other things. That's why I laughed.
Okay, all right. But I'm just saying, you know, your laughter, right? Men understand what that means. To the point where if, for example, she's not on my level. So if I'm working at McDonald's, and I worked at McDonald's when I was like 17, if a woman that was obviously studying, but she was like working in a law firm, what have you, she's making 6 figures, maybe to sleep with her, you might be able to get her. But in terms of take it seriously, it's very unlikely unless you get your money game up. Men know that. It's like, it's not even, and it's not, no blame is put on the woman. We don't call women gold diggers. We just understand. The same way if you heard Rihanna who's now like a billionaire, I know she's in a relationship, but if she was dating a bus driver, a lot of people would be like, irrespective of how he looked or how he treated her, people would look at that's incompatible because she's a billionaire, she's of this status wise. How can
I do believe compatibility is deeper than that though.
No, but I'm not just saying it's put down, because obviously when you've got money, you've got more likely to have different life experiences and what options are available to you to the way you live your life, right? That's what plays into it. That's why I'm just using money as an example. But I'm saying if it was the reverse, and there are a couple of people Hollywood actors, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, who one of them married like a waitress. But that's normal. Like a man could be a multimillionaire. He sees a waitress or he sees like a page 3 girl and he marries her. That's very common. Why? Because
so
for him.
Understand then. Can I just ask you something? So are we saying then that men? Would you say that men feel intimidated by successful women? Just by the by.
It depends what you mean by well, when you say intimidated, as in he can't give her what she wants because she's more financially earns more than him.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think? I think I won't use the word intimidated, but I think a lot of men internalize that she's not, maybe we're not going to be compatible because she won't respect me.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Because if I haven't got, and sometimes men take it the wrong way, that when I've got money, she has to respect me. And then some of them, they look at it like as in I own her, which is again problematic. But a lot of men, if a woman has more money than them, they will feel that she won't respect me long term, not in the beginning stage. That's why, again, what Kevin Samuels and other, like because he was speaking about like long-term relationships and marriage, that's different to dating or like a casual fling.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at long-term, there's a lot of women who are successful who might, you know, have a Stella got their groove back and sleep with a man who is beneath them in terms of socio-economically, but in terms of having a sustainable long-term relationship, it'll be very difficult because either he will feel emasculated or she may emasculate him. And now whether that's an insecurity in men or that's how women behave towards men who are like beneath them in terms of economically, that's a reality. So it's just go on, sorry.
I was just going to say, so then on the flip of that, so then a man that then takes a woman that is definitely financially lesser off,
yeah,
that's going to make him feel more empowered as a man then, if that's anything to go by.
Yeah, because even like what Dennis said, growing up, the messages we receive as a men, you are supposed to provide for your woman and your family. So if anything, him providing for her, he's acting as a man. He's fulfilling his duty. If he's not able to provide her, a number of men will feel that I'm not fulfilling the role as a man. Irrespective of how much they love it. Go on.
Someone just said, so is money really the important security we search for? No, I don't think it is.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm not speaking about ideals. I'm speaking about realities.
Right.
And that's what a lot of what Kevin Samuels was saying. He wasn't necessarily saying this is what, like, ideally you should be able to, money shouldn't be important, or, you know, look, you should be able to fall in love with someone for their personality and all the rest of it. But that doesn't wash when you're speaking to men. Yeah, in reality.
We're saying that's what he said, but then, sorry, this is hurting my head a little bit because we're saying that's what he said, but at the same time, that's not really the message that a lot of people receive from him. Because on one hand, you're saying that he was saying that, you know, in order for a woman to attract a man of this high value, she has to behave in a certain way. But then in the next breath, it's like, well, you know, men have to be the ones to be able to provide for women because that's basically what we're taught. I mean, you said it earlier. It was all a bit of a contradiction, wasn't it, really? And I think that's where, again,
yeah, no, but what he was saying, what he was saying, sorry if this comes across a bit harsh, but he was saying that a lot of those women who desire high value men don't desire those women. That's basically what he was saying. That's what he was saying. That's what he was saying, that you can want what you want, but the key question is what you want, does that person want you?
But you can say that about anything, though. You can say, you know, you can say a lot of them don't want that, but unless you're speaking to every single one of them, you can only vouch for the people that you've spoken to, right?
Generally speak. No, again, we're speaking about generalities. We can't speak about. I'm just saying, like, the same way. If a man says, if a man, and this is like the hard truth, and like maybe because maybe as men we like the directness of advice. If a young guy, maybe like an 18-year-old, were to say that he wants like a Victoria's Secret supermodel or something like that, a lot of his male friends will tell him he needs to get his money up.
Yeah.
Or he needs to get his status. He needs to have a conversation. He needs to get his game up. Like he needs to have something. I'm just saying that's what, because generally, again, there's exceptions to the rule, but generally those women may expect certain things from a man.
Right.
So that's what, and then go on.
But I was just going to say, they might tell him, and yeah, you're right. That would be one of the first things they say, get your money up. But that still ain't going to make you desirable, because even, you said that, you know, a lot of guys will ask what she looks like. Women do the same thing. So you could have all the money in the world, but, you know, if you're not appealing to the eyes of that woman, then your money, okay, they might take the money, but they're not going to take you as what they want. There's more.
How many women do you know that are in a long-term relationship or married to a man that they even said in the beginning they wasn't physically attracted to him?
Yeah, it happens. It does happen. But you could say the same for dudes.
No, not really.
No.
Dennis, can you answer?
Say your question
How
again?
many men do you know that said that they fell in love with their girlfriend, long-term girlfriend, and their wife because of her character, not because they found her attractive? They didn't find her attractive.
Because they didn't. They fell in love.
I'm sure there are some,
Habib.
Come on.
No, there might be, but it's rare. It's ridiculously rare.
Really? Okay.
That's what I'm just. Right. It's nothing wrong. Like, if a woman can overlook physical attractiveness because other things about his character is as appealing, if not more, that's fine. But I'm saying it's rare for a man to I'll be honest, I haven't come across.
You can call it shallow.
It's a unicorn.
That generally is the case. That I could probably
Well, I
say.
mean, I do accept the fact that men are more visual. I understand that. So I guess a man being physically attracted to a woman is a massive part of his attraction. I get that. I understand that.
Then
someone sent me a message, right? I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
They said, because this is actually why I took a screenshot. Why are you posting misogynistic KS in Kevin Samuels? Any man who follows Kevin Samuels is a misogynist. So you posting him, you are a misogynist. So
you hate women, Habib. You hate women.
So this is what I was saying when we spoke in the beginning, Cheryl, that not necessarily that again, it's not about defending him, or it's when you hear accusations about someone, like especially when it comes to misogyny, because even like a comment like that, because I posted him, all of a sudden I'm an advocate, supporter for him, I'm defending him, I defend all, and it's like that's not the case without even asking any questions. And that's something as well, which, like, how come, if I didn't even respond to that, and a lot of people that make comments, I don't even respond to such comments, but
yeah, you can't.
If you were to hear a number of people say, yeah, he's a misogynist, and then people then would just believe, yeah, he's a misogynist, because I've heard it from different people without actually listening to what the person said, understanding the context, that's where it's also kind of problematic. It's just because people would just accept things on face value because it came from one person, or someone was upset by what you said, or the tone, or because you put up images and you're objectifying women, so they felt you are a misogynist. Or you don't believe, or you don't subscribe to the traditional gender role. So go on.
I think it's unfair to call, well, maybe it's because I know you. I think it's unfair to call you misogynistic because, I mean, again, just the definition of that is someone that's strongly prejudiced against women. And I definitely don't think that you're someone that's prejudiced against women. I mean, I could understand, again, it goes down to how people feel about Kevin. You know, he polarized people massively. So there's people over here that can't stand him. And then there's people over here that are like, you know what? He's the best thing since sliced bread. We're all misunderstanding him. We're missing his point. And then you've got those people in the middle that are like, okay, yeah, he's a bit of an arse, but I can see his point. Do you see what I mean? So you know, you're going to get the extremes, Habib. So yeah, it's whatever.
But why do people listen? Why do people listen to him if they can't stand it?
I think it's about it's a bit of he's perverse, isn't it? It's like a perversion. When you shouldn't watch, but it's almost like you want to hear what he's going to say. Like, what are you really going to? Are you going to top what you said last week? Do you know what I mean? It's a bit of that, I think. I mean, you know what? The best thing for me was when he turned around and said, what was it he said about guys? That's it. Men should never, the only woman that a man should speak to is his mother. He should never tell a woman his problems because she will lose all respect for him. And I just thought, you know something? That is hugely problematic. As someone that advocates for communication in relationships and allowing men to understand that it's okay for them to be able to talk, express and articulate themselves, which is something that is a big issue for men, especially black men, and which is why a lot of men have mental health issues. I thought that was a real issue for him to say that.
But you know, I agree to that. But I can also see why he would have said that. I think if you ask the bulk of men, would they open up to their missus? A lot of men would tell you no, for the fear that that conversation at some point will come back to bite you in the bum. Will come back on you. It will be used against you at some point. That's why a lot of men don't. I guess I shouldn't say a lot of men. Some men don't feel being vulnerable in front of the women is something that should be seen as being respectful or feel comfortable. I think that's what it is.
Someone just said he probably had a lot of unresolved trauma. Thank you. That's been my theory. But anyway, sorry.
Okay, so can you expand on that after Dennis's? Can you talk about, as a psychologist, that self-diagnose someone off the internet, what that means?
Sorry, you talking to me?
No, Dennis, when you finish, can you talk about the unresolved? Because there's people that are making like diagnosis of someone speaking on the internet. It's like someone's a narcissist, someone's, you know, where do we get, if you're a clinical psychologist or studying or trained like yourself, fair enough, but where do people get these diagnoses? That's what I'm kind of.
The internet is a wonderful place, Habib. All you got to do is Google.
Wikipedia.
I think that's what a lot of people do.
But you don't think that's problematic? Because someone,
Of
again,
course it
because
is.
someone might come across as vain, so they're narcissists. Or someone has hurt their ex-partner and their girlfriend has maybe gone online, or their wife and said that he cheated on me, so he's narcissistic. And that's a clinical definition, isn't it? Like you need to be diagnosed by a professional, not just
Absolutely.
because someone.
Properly
So this is
diagnosed. Yeah.
so this is where, like, when we're speaking about feelings and facts or actual diagnosis, this is again where it's problematic, because if I've been hurt by someone, so then I just call someone a narcissistic or a misogynist or misandrist because I don't like what you said. Is that fair?
No, but you know what it is? These have now become buzzwords in our language.
Well, then,
You know, we kind of use the term misogynistic very, very loosely. You know, anyone that presents like they're against women, or they're saying things that go against women or womanhood, they're automatically chalked up as misogynistic. It's the same as narcissists. If someone is behaving in a certain way, it's very easy to call them a narcissist. Half the time, people don't even know what it means, but it just seems to fit somehow.
Can I ask Cheryl and Habib, can I ask you a question? I guess, who's the bigger villain? Is it Derek Jackson or Kevin Samuels?
The bigger villain. Wow.
so before you answer that,
Because
someone's got their TV on in the background. Who's got their TV on in the background?
I think.
Is there someone at the bottom here?
Can you mute your TV? Yes.
Yeah, go on.
Who was that? Was that you, Habib?
No, that's not me. But is that Nathan? Nathan, yeah. When Cheryl's answered, do you want to chime in and give your?
Yeah, go for it. I'm just listening to your comments. Yeah, go for it, and I'll chime in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Go on,
Sorry, say again, please, Dennis.
Yeah, so I wanted to know from you and Habib. I guess my last question before I go for that. I guess from your perspective, who's the biggest villain, Kevin Samuel or Derek Jackson? And I use the word villain in the context of, here you have one man who obviously was mistreating his wife, was having affairs, X, Y, Z, still has 1.1 million followers on his social media, YouTube accounts, but then he was celebrated. The response from the female community was, well, he's seeing other women, he should be. Why not? Then you have this guy that's come along with, you're not going to like my message, I'm going to say it. And yes, we've all agreed that his delivery was off, in some instances, very offensive. But why is one man who, quote unquote, women find attractive, celebrated for, I wouldn't say celebrated, but look, it wasn't frowned upon that he was cheating on his wife.
Oh, no, I think it was.
Yeah, but the same people that frowned upon it were the same people that are saying, you're doing great, so I can't wait to buy your book. And this is women, it's not men.
You know what I think happened with Derek Jackson? I think there were a few factors where he was concerned. Okay, so what he did to the wife was bang out of line. Like, I don't think there's anyone on this planet that will sit here other than another cheater or another person that's just equally as bad that would think how he behaved was acceptable. It was not. But I think what happened is, because he kind of owned it and then kind of made it into a thing. He kind of, not because he owned it and normalized it, people accepted it as, because I mean, let's be real, these things do happen. Do you know what I mean? He's not an exception to the rule to that. People do cheat on each other. People do effed up things to each other, and people do come through the other side of it. So it's almost like he's playing out a reality for a lot of people. So he's kind of made it, he's kind of, I guess, opened himself up in a way. He's shown his vulnerabilities. He kind of spoke openly about what Habib side-eyed me big time. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I think with Kevin, I think the difference is, and again, it's where you're sitting. You know, it's where you sit with it all. It's how you're going to view it. I think with Kevin, because again, his delivery, and I think delivery is key in everything anyway. How you present and what you're presenting makes such a difference to the reaction that you get back. Derek wasn't delivering in a way that was deemed offensive or could be deemed offensive or attacking, or do you know what I'm saying?
But is that because after everything came out, he then went on what we call kind of the digital PR? The tone, like I said, going back to what I said before, the tone was very soft. It's all about my message now. I understand my mistake. Please forgive me. I did wrong. I was, mistreating my wife, X, Y, Z. So because he's watered down his tone, that's been more accepted, even though to me, what he's done and how he's done it is a million times worse than the message that Kevin Samuel was delivering.
Okay, if we're talking about messages, because I do believe there's been a bit of dirt on Kevin in the past as well, but you know, if we're talking about messages or lifestyle, I think with Derek's lifestyle was brought to the fore because of the whole situation with the wife. Kevin's lifestyle hasn't necessarily been put under the magnifying glass in the same way. So when you're talking about messages versus lifestyle, I think that's an unfair comparison anyway.
Okay, but can you see? Sorry, Abby, before you say, but can you see how from a male perspective, as men, some men, not all men, some men would think, okay, well, if this man can do ABC, this is Derek Jackson, and then can receive, quote unquote, his, I guess, not be looked at in such a bad and deeming light. But then you have someone like Kevin Samuel who's saying what he's saying in the way he's saying it and being as direct as he is. So can you understand how dangerous it is for men to look at women uplifting someone like Derek Jackson for what he's done? The message that then sends out is that you can do X, Y, Z, but just don't talk to us and tell us what we don't want to hear in such a direct way. That I'm telling you, that's how as men we perceive it.
Okay, that's how you're seeing it as men, but I don't necessarily think that's how it is. I think again, it's all about language and presentation, isn't it? Because I don't think women see it like that. You're saying men do, then I accept that. But again, it's about there's two different things we're talking about. We're talking about what someone did in their life. What was Derek's message? Yes, his message was very much, he was telling the women, you know, the nice stuff, the softer stuff. He was definitely it was much softer in his delivery. So if you want to compare the messages, fine.
No, even the lifestyle, because we can touch on the lifestyle in the sense that, and this is what a lot of men had issues with Derek Jackson, was that he was a hypocrite. Because he was going at other men publicly for cheating, and they got like with the Kevin Hart situation. He would actively going out saying like, if you respect your queen, if you respect your wife, you wouldn't do X, Y, and Z. Whereas most men will keep quiet. That's his business. Even if he did wrong, I'm not going to go out and publicly humiliate him, right? Then he was found out to be doing the same thing, if not worse. So that's where a lot of men was like, and this guy was the one that was, you know, selling dreams, selling women hope, saying if a man really loved you, he would never do X, Y, and Z, when he was doing all of these things. Kevin Samuels, on the other hand, he says, I'm not shit. He says, I'm not shit. I have multiple women. I see escorts. This is what, if you want to get with me, you'll be on a rotation. Whether you disagree with his lifestyle or not, he's open. He's more of an open book and saying, this is what it is. Now, again, I don't agree with his lifestyle, but I respect that he was putting it out there. Now, if a woman wants to be with him, then she's aware of what she signed up for. Whereas the people like it, and there's a number of Derek Jackson, he's just like an example, who will say the fluffy things, who will talk about the self-love ambassador, who will speak about emotional intimacy and all of the healing and all of the nice stuff that women like to hear, and you will buy into it. And even when he's even been caught and found out, he will say all of the stuff about, you know, the vulnerability, all of the buzzwords that trigger women in a nice way, and then he's forgiven.
Yeah.
Again, it's not to say that I'm not saying one is the devil and one is like a saint. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that men can understand that we all can, I wouldn't even say make mistakes, we are all flawed, and especially when it comes to women. We're not going to, that's why anyone who comes across and makes it like he will never do X, Y, and Z, and then he is holier than thou and looks down at other men, that is like the scum of the earth, because especially when you're doing the same.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. What he did was really scummy. I'm not trying to justify that.
But why do you think that a lot of, because men was saying this like from years ago, before, like he's a clear con artist. Why do you think that women like didn't believe him on the mass until it all came out?
Well, again, because it was the language. The language that he used. I'm not saying that it was right, because obviously, you know, essentially he was hoodwinking people out here. Do you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, and this is why I think if Kevin, you see, it's difficult because if, yeah, right, you can say it's brutal, and Kevin was just to the point, but that's why I think his language was very much for the man then, because he was talking in a way that men can relate to. Kevin.
Okay, you've got family from Jamaica, right?
Right.
I've got family from Nigeria. I'm sure in Jamaica, like old school, definitely Nigeria, that's how the elders speak.
Yeah, it's just hood. Yeah, it's just like no,
Not
sorry,
hood.
that's the
No,
wrong
not
word.
hood.
That was the
No,
wrong word.
direct.
That was the
Direct. They
wrong
will tell
word. Let me
you.
just
They will tell you.
take
I've
it
got
back.
aunts and
Yeah,
uncles that will
direct.
tell you you're putting on weight. You're skinny. Why can't you get a woman? Why can't you get a man? That's just direct. And it
Yeah.
wasn't seen as offensive growing up. Let's be honest. I've got relatives. I'm sure you've got relatives who speak to us in that direct
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah,
It's just
tell
because
you about how you
now,
look fat, how you look this, how you look
right,
that. Yeah,
right.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Now, many of us were not traumatized by that. Or that's
No.
just we took it as,
Tell with
and
it.
a lot of it came from a good place.
Mm.
So I'm saying with someone like the Kevin Samuels, I think the women as well. It's not just men can take it. There are a number of women who can take what he said, and what they disagree with. Again, they just that's BS. I'm not gonna listen to that. Like Dennis was talking about the whole accountability. You don't have to listen to everything or believe everything that someone is saying. There's very few people that's living on this earth. I agree with 100% of what they're saying.
Yeah, of
And
course.
to make it out like we should police the way men speak in order so it's palatable to all women. When you're speaking to hundreds, if not thousands of people from different parts of the world, that's impossible. And if you're always going to be thinking about, okay, again, don't get me wrong, he was playing the villain. I think he went over the line on the numerous things, but that was because he was trying to always be this viral sensation. He was
Yeah.
playing when he was
There was
saying, this is going to be on World Star. This is going to be on World Star. He was playing up, unfortunately, to his primarily male audience who got a kick out of seeing a man humiliate women, which that I disagree with. And that's where, but it was the thing, that was what kept him growing, if that makes
But
sense.
this
It's
is
like
why
a
I'm
carpet.
saying I understand all
Yeah.
of that. I understand all of that, Habib, and I accept all of that. But this is why understanding and accepting that means that I can also see why that would be a problem amongst women, especially black women.
I see.
Because
No,
especially black women, because let's be real, I mean, that seemed to be, you know, whenever he was talking about what you shouldn't be or what you should be, however you want to look at it, it was often directed at black women. And his fans, let's be real, his fans, I mean, you only have to look at the kind of outpouring after his death, you know, the comments about, it's going to be all the fat black women that are going to be vexed. It's going to be all the, you know, all that kind of narrative, that kind of sort of exposed the type of men that he was getting through to. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
you're
that
right.
kind of drummed home the fact that, yes, okay, in and amongst your messages, there might have been some very valid points. The people you're appealing to are not very nice people.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Well said. No, I agree with that. Sorry, Nathan, do you want to share your thoughts or speak about Kevin Samuels' legacy? I don't know if you just joined. Oh,
Right,
yes.
Cheryl, Habib, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to leave you guys to it.
All right, Dennis.
All right,
Sure.
Dennis, take care.
Till next time. See ya.
See ya.
That's would be. Yeah, I'll just like to say, basically, just what you guys were touching on the subject about Derek Jackson and Kevin as well. It's a fact. For both a question for you. Don't you think both of them in different dialects, in different scenarios, have monopolized from the situations, but done it also in a different way in terms of obviously Derek was this, you know, like you both guys just said, was a, you know, oh, family man, oh, yes, I love my wife, men, and then he got caught. But then obviously he monopolized on the situation and done the whole T-shirt thing and blah, blah. And in another sense, you got Kevin, who's, like he said, a direct man who something he built to give advice to men, then he switched to women, and then he gave his opinion, whether rightly or wrongly, harsh. But I think the fact of the matter is, in terms of Kevin, I think one thing he just kind of misconstrued or misunderstood. Everyone has different feelings, everyone has different thoughts, everyone has different situations. Now, I could tell you, Habib, certain situation that you react a different way, and I'll tell you straight up. Like I could tell you vice versa, Cheryl. I can tell you a certain situation, and you react to situation. So I think the purposely portrayed is different strokes for different folks. That's the thing. But at the same time, in this life, as we all know, not just in terms of Kevin, just in life, you have to be, you are who you are. And it'll, as the saying goes, it was your own. No, some people like it, some people love it. Like for me personally, Kevin, you know, was a straight up guy. Yes, I watched him. Yes, again, similar to Dennis. I agree with some of his views. Other stuff, you know, could be harsh. And one thing I would like to say, an important thing, was the whole money situation in terms of the balance, in terms of financial aspects. Like, I'm gonna be honest, like for me, my missus, she earns more than me, right? But because she earns more than me, yes, as a man, it gets a bit, you're thinking, oh, flipping out, man, I'm not liking it. But it doesn't detract the fact as a man, I still provide for certain things. I still put my end to the table. I don't go asking for nothing because, you know, us as men, we've got pride. So I do put my bit in and I do, and she does appreciate me for that. So again, everything is all in context and how you see it. And plus, I'm trying to elevate my life to a certain space. And I think we live in a day and age, to do with Kevin, that social media has just plateaued to a sense where everyone gets distracted about the real issues inside their own relationship, their own situations. And I think a lot of people, Kevin, for example, and other stuff, unfortunately take things to heart and they get clouded by the judgment on social media, what other YouTube influencers says, and it affects their own judgment in terms of their own relationships, their own lifestyle. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think I don't know. I kind of feel like I'm just repeating myself a lot. You know, I'm just going to kind of go over old ground. I think, yeah, it is different folks for different strokes. And I think one thing we can say about Kevin is he spoke from his chest. Like, let's be real. He didn't really mince his words. He basically said what he had to say and really didn't give a toss what anybody else had to say. In fact, someone made a comment just now in the chat saying that it's like the Trump approach. You appeal to the lowest mentality. And I completely agree with that. He definitely appealed to those men that really felt strongly maybe hard done by women, maybe not so successful with women, maybe not able to completely understand women, understand how to move forward with women, how to get women, how to just be around women. So those kind of men especially warmed to Kevin because he was like their voice piece. He said all the things and articulated all the things that they couldn't. And it's important that people have others that they can identify with, but when it's problematic and when it's creating more of a destructive narrative, which I think in some instances it did, that's when we have this. And that's when you have division, and that's when you have, sadly, when someone passes away, you've got people that are literally reveling in your death because of how you made them feel, how you made others think that they could behave because of the things that you said and because of the things that you were pushing out. I'm not agreeing with that, by the way, let me just add, because as I said at the beginning of this, I do not agree with reveling in anyone's death. Death is final. We just leave that to God. Do you know what I'm saying? But I can understand why some people are really, really passionate about it.
Can you touch on the unresolved trauma? Someone actually left a comment about trauma again.
Yeah.
That he probably was suffering from childhood trauma. Can you touch on that and shed some light, like in terms of how that can manifest itself in an adult? Because
unresolved trauma is... Sorry, what was that? Didn't hear that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. No, it's how to manifest itself in the future. Like if someone's gone through trauma as a child or what have you, that you know, can you talk about that?
You see it all the time. Well, yeah, so you see it all the time, but you know, unresolved trauma, if something does happen in childhood that is very traumatic, it can lie dormant, and then as an adult it can manifest itself in many ways. And I believe what the person was referring to as far as Kevin is concerned, this kind of what might seem to a lot of people weird kind of focus, kind of infatuation with telling women how to be, how to behave, you know, just this kind of entitlement to be able to tell and instruct can kind of come off the back of maybe feeling what am I trying to say? Maybe shit happened to him, you know, maybe it could be anything from just being, quote unquote, a nerd in school, not being liked, not being one of the cool kids, not getting women, being someone that was picked on, being someone that struggled to be liked but didn't really succeed. Now you're a man and you've understood different things, you can do different things. Suddenly you're in a position now where you can start calling the shots. That can manifest as this, basically, and just someone that seems to be just pointing fingers, telling people what to do. Yeah, I don't know if that's the best explanation, but
thank you. And what advice? Because I think Kevin Samuels has like
that was really
birthed a number
babbly, by the way, but I know what I meant.
I know what you meant as well. I think Kevin Samuels has kind of given birth to a number of like problematic YouTubians, as Umar Johnson said, right? So what advice with that whole problematic views about women, what advice, if any, would you give men who don't hold those views, who come across other men, like maybe in their friendship groups, who kind of like continue this disparaging or demeaning black women?
Stop it. Stop it, it's nonsense. Like, you know, understand yourself. I feel like when we look at other people and we want to point out flaws and make those flaws a thing, sometimes it's worth going back to yourself and understanding, why is that such an issue for me? You know, why does that speak to me? Why am I enjoying the fact that these black women are being torn down or ridiculed or rinsed or cussed or blasted or whatever it is? What is that? Why is that appealing to me? You know, if you've got a friend that is disrespected, okay, first of all, if you're a black man and you're disrespecting black women, then you have a problem because your mother is black. How or what is it that your mum did to you that makes you feel it's okay? Purely for the fact that your mum is black, that should be enough to stop you from being so damn disrespectful. And that's not to say that you can't have something to say, because we can all see and observe stuff. Let's not be, you know what I mean, unrealistic about life. I see issues with black men. I love black men. But I see issues with black men. And I can point those out, but not be disrespectful about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, if I was to go around here just rinsing off black men, then you would be right to ask me, well, what's my problem? And it's the same thing with guys. If black men are going around dissing black women, or you have a friend that is dissing black women, he needs to look at himself and try and understand what the hell's going on.
And have you seen a change? Yeah, so have you seen a change in the UK in terms of views or attitudes towards black men, especially amongst, like, I don't know, podcasters or media outlets? The only reason I'm saying that is because I'm not going to name any names, but I know of two podcasts where they spoke, like, the way they were venerating Kevin Samuels as if he was like the Messiah, and these were men in like their 30s and 40s, so grown men that were saying that Kevin Samuels gave us a voice. And I was thinking, wow, you needed a man on the other side of the Atlantic to kind of empower you, but I didn't really understand it. But I'm just wondering, and then I was listening to I was watching a couple of tweets, and some men were saying that he was a voice of fatherless men. So again, I wanted to try to understand that, because that's quite deep. When he made a video breaking that down and saying that, because a lot of men, especially those who didn't either have fathers or strong father figures, and they were mentored maybe by their peers or the streets. This was an articulate, sophisticated black man who not only he embodied what we kind of consider to be traditional masculinity, the way he spoke, but he wasn't from the entertainment or music brand, so he was different. And that's what piques a lot of people. So I don't know. Again, I was fortunate enough to grow up with strong male role models. So that's why, rather than just looking down on men who kind of looked at him as like their mentor or their godfather or their father figure, I was trying to understand that. So like, my question to you is, have you noticed like a change, or what do you think the reasons are that a number of men, especially in the UK, are attracted to Kevin Samuels in his messaging and look at him as like a father figure or mentor?
I think outside of the ones that just want to clout chase, I think there's probably something in that. There's probably something in that. If you haven't had that, I guess, a continuous father figure, because I mean, most people have men in their lives in some shape or form, but maybe haven't not had someone that is a consistent, positive role model, male role model in your life, then yeah, I guess someone like Kevin that presents as an articulate black man, an educated black man, looks the part, I guess it can be attractive, you know. And again, it only takes for him to say one thing that clicks with you for you to then decide that actually, you know what, maybe he's right on a few other points. Let me maybe see it from that perspective. You know, when you start to, you know, when you like something, then suddenly everything else that person says doesn't seem as bad as it would have had you not heard that bit that really spoke to you. Suddenly now it's like you can find yourself making excuses for why he's saying those things, because of this, because of that. And quite often it's because women ain't shit, because women deserve that, because she's single, she's fat, she's over 35, she's a leftover, she's, you know, all of these different things that he's kind of brought up. So men can now use these things as justifications for why maybe they're not getting through, or they're just not, you know, it's like it's switching blame, isn't it? It's taking the focus away and putting it on these women and making them the reason why, and not, you know, yeah, it's, yeah, I think there's something in that about being fatherless or not having positive male role models in lives.
For anyone listening, it may be a sociological paper or study, because I think maybe, or documentary, something worth looking into, because like I said, I didn't really understand it, but I've heard it so many times from different men that there must be something in it, that there's a reason why so many people, you know. And prior to him, the only other figure that I could think of that, again, I didn't really understand why people took to, you know, especially celebrities, as like their mentors without even really knowing them, was the other figure that I can think of is like Jay-Z. I hear a lot of men in their 30s and their 40s that would speak about Jay-Z and like take so much life lessons from him and look at him beyond just being a rapper. And yeah, he's an entrepreneur, but like they will hang on to every word that he says.
You know, also, I think it's important to note, Habib, that we're living in a world where social media impacts not just women, but I feel like men, it's like the men's turn. You know, women are so used to seeing Insta baddies, Insta models, tits out, butt out, snatched waist, perfect face, filtered to the max. We're used to it now. A couple of years back, it was a real issue. And to some extent with the youngers, it's still a massive issue. But I think now what's happening is you're getting a lot of men that are paying attention to social media and are actually impacted by social media a lot more than they would admit. So where you've got a lot of guys out here, you know, in the gym, buff body, tops up, looking all the part, got the Gucci, got the Dior, got the Galley, got the hot gallon, you know, all of that. And it's all over social. Men are now in the same position that women were a few years ago, looking, feeling insecure, looking at themselves, trying to work out how best to kind of navigate their life based on or comparing themselves to that dude. And I think when you get someone like Kevin that comes along, again, take all those insecurities and you have a man that is now almost speaking to your insecurity and justifying your insecurity for you, that's attractive.
It's always a difficult one, because again, looking at like a Kevin Samuels or other people on social media that are showing or showcasing wealth or status, one person can take from it as that's aspirational. Another person can take from it and feel like more insecure because they're not where they should be, because as a man, you're expected to be earning X amount of time, amount of money. And that's the problem. So it's always, and again, I think when you actually listen to, especially listen to a lot of his shows, that's why I say people, if they can listen to, I know it's long, but like a 2 or 3 hour, and you understand the context, even when he's speaking about like high value man or what have you, he speaks about the importance of like discipline, which I mentioned previously, and ethics. But these two things are not sexy to, it's not going to attract people. If you just mention discipline or ethics or integrity, people are not going to, you know, so naturally you might need to have like buzzwords or things that might attract people, and then you're going to, and that's how I look at it. That's how, when I was listening to him and I can appreciate what he was trying to do, is that speaking about these important stuff, is that ultimately what defines a man. Because even when he speaks about a high value man, we have a high value man has options, and has multiple women, has rotation. He ultimately is even saying, even for himself, he doesn't want that. He was just saying that you've got the ability to do it, but you have to have sexual discipline. But what attracts generally a lot of men is that when they see or hear that a man is wealthy, successful, and has multiple women or the potential to get multiple women, then that gets his attention, and then he can then speak to him about the importance of having integrity, ethics, discipline, what have you. But if you start from those three things in the beginning, a lot of your messaging will fall on deaf ears. So that's why, again, I think, for me, because he's speaking to adults, and generally he speaks to people 25 and upwards, to the point where if someone phones in and they're 18 or 19, he'll be like, "You're too young for this." And the reason why I think that's quite clever is because if you're speaking to someone that's at least 25 years and upwards, I would expect you to have a level of maturity to understand, to be able to take what you did. Like, you can use your own rationale. It's not like just because you're an impressionable young person. That's what I take from it. Because if he was appealing to young adults or teenagers, then I will be 100% this is problematic. Whereas when you're speaking to fully grown adults,
you would like to think that they can make informed decisions.
Well, I can't. Okay, maybe the reason why I'm saying, because I can relate to it in a sense that the stuff that I put out on my social media platforms, if I'm targeting like teenagers or young adults, then it can be very problematic, because I don't know what they can take from it. But if I'm speaking to, which I'm targeting adults, especially those over the age of 25, I expect you to be able to understand a lot of it is like with the memes and stuff, this is entertainment. If you're taking everything as literal, I can't, well, in my personal perspective, I can't be held accountable for everyone. Am I going to vet or give a disclaimer with everything I put out and say, oh, by the way, this is entertainment, I don't endorse X, Y, and Z? I can't do that for everything. And that's the reality. And that's where, and I think that's even the level that he reached, is in his understanding that he won't be able to reach everyone and appeal to everyone. You are going to have people that dislike you or don't get your message. And that's fine. It's not for. And if you're putting something out on, and I think even for any content creator, any entrepreneur, any business person, or any even aspiring writer, when you put something out on the internet or to the world, you can't expect everyone to like you. There's going to be some people who even may be offended by your stance or even your language.
Yeah, of course.
Don't get me wrong, I think Kevin Samuels went a bit too far, no, definitely went too far on a number of things. But I'm saying the whole idea of you can't offend anyone, or else I'm not going to put anything out. You'll never do anything. So that's
but when you,
I think we've kind of
I think that's right. But then, when you realize that there's a growing number of people that seem to have an issue with your delivery, then that's maybe something that needs to be examined. But again, it depends on how you are as a person. If you're
do you think he had more supporters or detractors?
It would appear that there's more detractors. In death, we're seeing, well, again, this is just what I'm seeing. I mean, I could be wrong. Some of the tweets that I've seen are, anyway, but no, actually, I don't know. I would say maybe it's quite even. It's quite balanced. He does have a lot of supporters. He does.
I think he has way more supporters than he's got detractors. But people generally are not going to publicly vocalize their support, how much they appreciate or even enjoy this content. Most people, we don't do that.
True.
The same way, you order something from a restaurant, how a restaurant knows that you like their service is repeat customers.
Yeah.
It's not that you write reviews. They would love you to write reviews on Amazon or Uber Eats or what have you, but people that complain, they are generally the majority, the minority, but they're the vocal, the loud minority. And unfortunately, because people hear about the people that are their displeasure on something, they think they're speaking on behalf of everyone.
Yeah.
Because most people that I speak to, both men and women, they don't. Again, they may disagree with some aspect, but just look at his numbers. The numbers say, like, he has got. You look at the engagement; it's ridiculous. To have on his Instagram, like live, like 100, 200,000 people viewing regularly every 2-3 days, and you look at the comments, there are a lot of women. It's not everyone hate. So that's why it's to say that, because if what he was doing was completely toxic and women hated him, then how do you explain that he's got so many women following him?
I don't think, and again, I just want to make this clear. I don't think that everything was toxic. I just think I was trying to say the reason why, I mean, I can understand why there's a huge amount of women that don't or didn't, past tense now, didn't respect the king because of how it was presented. I don't think there's anybody that could rightfully sit here and say, I think I've said this before, so I'm probably repeating myself. Some of the things, there were some points that, you know, created conversation, created like trigger jump off points for bigger conversations that were needed. 1000%. You cannot dispute that. He touched on that. I just think a lot of people had issues with the delivery. I think, sorry, there was a comment from Tina about healing and projecting. I can't go back. Can you see it on your end?
Yeah, let me see if I can continue talking, please. I'll find it. Oh yeah, I found it. Projecting instead of looking within self and engage in the healing process. So projecting instead of looking within self and engage in the healing process. Cheryl, are you there?
I think she's frozen.
Okay, well, maybe it's a Wi-Fi. So while she's, hopefully her Wi-Fi gets sorted out. Yeah, do you want anything to add, Nathan, on this?
Well, I wanted to ask a question, but obviously she's frozen. A question to both of you, but that's fine. But I just think we just live in a world basically where there's a lot of hypocritical substance to certain things. So obviously, like you were saying, in terms of the viewers, in terms of the million viewers, so some of them. And I think in terms of what you're saying about the tweets, in terms of especially a lot of black women, you know, rejoicing and stuff like that, I think a lot of the tweets that they put out there, like happy the fortunate circumstance of them, they are the same people that watch this show in and out every week. So it's a bit, again, we live in a bit of a hypocritical society in that aspect. But what I wanted to say is a question that you touched on. Cheryl, you said about Kevin, about his growing up, his, you know, traumas and stuff like that, little research you've done. So my question to both of you is, would you say, in terms of his context of his show, would you say his advice, well, we're just going to stick with the women, would you say that constructive criticism or borderline bullying?
Sorry, can I just say, it was more in response to someone mentioned childhood trauma. I didn't actually.
Okay.
Yeah, just to make that clear. Someone mentioned unresolved trauma, and I agreed, and I said that could be an element. Sometimes people project in this kind of way. So, but yeah, do I think it was bullying? Some would think it's bullying. Yeah, some would. Some would, because it was quite clear the demographic that appeared to be targeted. Some could regard that as bullying. Yeah. When it's clear who you're speaking to and it appears to be negative, what is the definition of bullying? You know,
that's another question altogether.
I think some people, I think it would be fair for some to see it as bullying. Yeah,
that's a really good question, actually.
It is.
I definitely think he was being cruel at times, and he did that for entertainment purposes. And the problem was, I think a lot of women in particular, was actually they wanted genuine advice, and then he would sometimes take that as an opportunity to kind of make light of the situation or for entertainment purposes, when it wasn't. I don't think a lot of people looked at the platform as I think they looked at him like as an online therapist or relationship therapist. But sometimes he would say, to be fair, that go and seek medical professional help. I'm not a therapist. He would say that a number of times, and he did encourage people to go to see a therapist. But the problem is that a number of people, I think, saw him as like a therapist and wanted his help. And that's where it's kind of problematic, because I think where a lot of men look at it is if you know what his approach is, why are you going to go on his platform? That's how men view it, right? Generally speaking. But then now actually looking at it and just thinking about actually Nathan's question about cyberbullying, it could be considered to be cyberbullying if a woman is generally going there for like, she wants advice, like real genuine advice. She's going through something, she wants some help, and then someone's like playing sound effects, or when she's saying her weight, that's really, like make it. And and hundreds if not thousands of people are watching that around the world, and then he's using sometimes those images to create a meme. Actually, that is really, because if yeah, that's wrong. I think, and I think a lot of people probably wasn't aware of what they were letting themselves into. It's kind of like going to a comedy show and you're sitting in the front or the second row, and then the person makes you the butt of their jokes. But not only that, your face is shown on the wide screen. Can you imagine? And then it's put up on Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you're just going there to maybe just to get some entertainment, but
Chill.
you've become the butt of the joke, and not only that, everyone can see it. So the humiliation, actually, when I think about it, that's not
It's not cool.
that's not cool. I mean, he would probably argue if he was around, obviously, or like his defenders, that he only gives as good as he gets, because there's some people he does come across as quite, pleasant and polite. But if he feels, and this is where I felt like has he got issues? Because if someone cuts him off, or like he'll go crazy, like, and very petulant, like, and he's a grown man. He was obviously a grown man in his 50s, so that's why I didn't understand. He couldn't take anyone kind of disagreeing with him, and that's why I never understood why.
Of trauma.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Can I be sorry, guys? Sorry to cut you off. Can I just tie something into that in perspective in terms of my question, just a rebuttal from that? Could you say the whole in terms of public embarrassment, in terms of Kevin, the way he talked to him? Could you put in the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident in a different context? Because obviously Will had a lot of trauma or whatever, and obviously we know the situation with Jada. He's been embarrassed publicly, etc. And obviously we all know what happened that night. That triggered him off, and he publicly slapped Chris Rock. Could you tie that a little bit into the scenario, if that makes sense?
Well, as in bullying or trauma?
Well, yeah, trauma in terms of context, in terms of Kevin, the way the way he delivers, as you both is that his dialogue, his direct approach to certain women, which again, like we just said, can seem harsh. Some of them have taken it to heart in the sense of, obviously he's died now. Certain women are celebrating his death. So I'm just trying to tie a little bit the Will Smith, Chris Rock incident in terms of him slapping him on a global public platform sent to millions of viewers, if that makes sense.
Right. So what do you mean? How Will reacted, or?
Yeah, in terms of the whole Will reacted, or in terms of Kevin, he talks he's got a load of viewers. So obviously, certain women he talks to them very derogatory. Some of them in a certain context. Okay. So I'm just trying to tie that in terms a little bit in the aspect of what he does in a different way in terms of Will's drama, which he did, which triggered him to slap Chris Rock.
Oh, okay.
If that makes sense.
Like maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're comparing the way people react to trauma.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
I don't think that's justified. Even if, sorry to cut you, sorry, go on, Cheryl.
No, go on.
No, I just think, I mean, irrespective of what someone's gone through, that's not a justification. So even if someone has experienced trauma, like even in Will Smith, whatever situation, that doesn't justify him putting his hands on someone, especially and publicly embarrassing. Like, I don't agree. I don't subscribe to that. The same way, even if Kevin Samuels was traumatized or has some issues, it doesn't give him the right to publicly humiliate and embarrass someone in public, because he doesn't even like the fact of someone disagreeing with his argument, and he will like chastise them, let alone humiliating them, and then saying that this is going, and he knows this world star, he will say it a number of times. That's when I stopped like listening to him, because I was like, okay, you're playing the character now. When you're saying world star, take this, world star, I'm going to make you famous. Then so he's looking for sound bites. I mean, it was a point where when we were speaking, Cheryl, I think earlier, probably last year, when he was asking, these women must not be real that are calling in, and I'll say no, they're real women, because
I couldn't believe it, man.
Yeah, no, but it was, and that plays into, in a good or bad way, his brilliance, because because he knew what he was doing. That's what I was saying, that it was setting people up. He'd be asking, he knows women are coming looking for this high value rich man or what have you, and they think he's got the keys to that, but then he's asking them these questions and setting them up, and then again he's gonna knock them down or make them look stupid, which again, that's, upon reflection, that's really bad. That's wicked, to be honest. So the more even now I'm reflecting, I'm actually looking, no, that's bad vibes, because you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing. It's not like, you've got all of these, and these are real people. These aren't like actors. If these were actors and stuff, fair enough. But these are real people who have genuine concerns and want some help, but you're using this as an opportunity. And you know, you've got your disclaimer in the beginning saying, you know, I'm going to use your image. A lot of people, they don't think about stuff like that, and then to be ridiculed, and then again, you literally hundreds of thousands of people are going to be watching that person for God knows how long. It's when I reflect on it, no, that's not. So yeah, that's not right.
It's
so
not. No.
I think
Someone just mentioned nobody is expected to understand somebody else's trauma, and I agree with that. But I also think that in a weird kind of way, you know, when they say, what's the turn of phrase when like shit attracts shit? That's a really crude way of saying it. You know, like when, do you know what I mean? Okay, let's use something nice. When positivity attracts positivity, you know, I think it's similar. When someone's been through something traumatic, there's something about their energy that draws people that have had similar experiences to them. So when we're talking about, someone mentioned something about the lower mentality guys that Kevin appealed to, I would take that one stage further and maybe say he was appealing to people that had similar experiences, but maybe on a subconscious level, they didn't even realize. Because obviously Kevin never spoke about anything like that, as far as we know. I mean, I don't know. I've not researched him to that extent. But, you know, it wasn't publicly known that he experienced trauma. But I think most people would say something popped off. Like, you don't kind of carry on like that without something happening somewhere along the line. Do you know, whether that's a bad breakup, whether mum and dad split up and it affected you massively, or whatever the case may be, something must have popped off that has given him these really kind of extreme views and feel, you know, expressing these extreme views are justified. Do you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of say that maybe the attraction for a lot of people, a lot of these men, is that kind of understanding, subconscious understanding that they can relate on some level.
Well, actually,
it's about relatability.
That's touched on. Again, I don't know if it's considered to be a traumatic event, but he did speak about that he was a simp, and girls used to take advantage of him.
Yes, he did, didn't he?
Yeah, and I know with a lot of, similar to what Dennis mentioned earlier about the whole revenge of the nerds, a lot of these like famous or popular people who once upon a time wasn't successful with women, or was, you know, women didn't really take them seriously, that now they've got some attention, they kind of, you know, I definitely think that a lot of men are relating to that. So I think that's where it's problematic. So I do agree with you in a sense of, I don't know what to call them, like these, they're not reformed, but these former simps, or these men that were either mistreated, or they the nice guy, or they've grown up, or they were the nice guy, and then now that they've got a little bit of fame or attention or money or clout, they want to now kind of make women feel the pain that they felt when they were younger.
You see it in Hollywood movies all the time.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You see it all the time. It is definitely a thing. It's almost like payback.
Yeah, like payback. And yeah, so that I definitely, when you said that, actually, that made me think of, because a number of the guys that kind of look up to him as if he's like this some kind of demigod god figure, they do talk about, I went through this, or this girl did me dirty, but because they've had a bad experience with one woman, like when they were like 16 years of age, now as a 40-year-old man, they still they want to take it out on the whole.
But it's traumatic, isn't it?
Especially
when it throws your masculinity into question. And let's be real, age 16 is a very impressionable age. Like, if a girl does you over at that age, that's going to carry you through life. Let's be real. You know, so it is understandable. And again, because men are never really encouraged to go and seek therapy, which is another thing that I think is so crucial, this is what happens. You get men trying to get therapy, but in different ways. And I guess to a lot of men, Kevin was therapy. It gave them an understanding, some kind of clarity, or what they thought was clarity on certain things. But who knows?
All right. Okay, just wrapping up. It's gone quite, I think it's almost 2 hours. Any final
It is.
thoughts?
I've gone past my bedtime, love.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? Thank you for joining us, everyone who's joined in their comments. I'm going to try and save this. Hopefully, it should be able to save, because, well, it's 2 hours. So I don't know if Instagram allows allows us to save videos that's more than an
They
hour.
let
But
me save my conversation with our mate across the water.
really,
Yeah, and that
really,
was two and
okay.
a half. That was 2.5.
Oh wow, I haven't watched that. I need to watch that.
I had
He
to break
actually
it down. I had to
okay.
break
But are we speaking about the same Mr. Ron Wills, right?
Yeah, big up Rom. Yeah.
You big up Ron, big up Ron. He actually did a video with Kevin Samuels before he blew up, and he was speaking about the importance, like about ethics and image, and but this was when funny enough, when Kevin Samuels was directing his message to men, and he was speaking about how men. He was speaking a lot about self-development and how men should be the best men possible in order to attract the woman that they want. Now,
You should have stuck with
again, that type of messaging, it's not going to blow up. Whereas when you're speaking about negative and decisive things, unfortunately, that's what attracts a lot of viewers, and that's when you can now monetize. And yeah, so and he's probably stuck with that formula. But anyway, we've spoken enough about Mr. Kevin Samuels. Thoughts and prayers go out to his family and friends. And again, that which is beneficial, take it, and that which you disagree with, and that which is harmful, again, I'll just say just leave it. But I'm not going to act like I didn't appreciate some of what he did, and again, he's marketing, but upon reflection, even some of the points you've raised, Cheryl, and even you, Nathan, and Dennis, it's kind of actually me reevaluating, especially the point about the cyberbullying and the public humiliation and stuff. I never really deep that as probably much as I should have. So, yeah, so thank you both. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, just like real sympathy for his mum. I mean, she said she found out online. Imagine. But that's the world we live in, right?
Terrible.
And that's what happened with Jamal Edwards as well, isn't it? Remember?
Yeah.
Yes, Brenda. Yeah.
Was it that the information was released? Oh, it was just deep.
Yeah, it was released online. No, so she knew, but it was released before the family. And this is where I hold my hand up, to that. I'm as culpable as anyone, because like with the Kevin Samuels, not with the Jamal Edwards situation. When I heard about it, like his friends were confirmed it, I tweeted about it without like thinking about his family, as in maybe his mum didn't even know, so I think even if you could say someone like, or what Kevin Samuels has created, even some people would consider him to be like a monster. I think people that followed him and watched him, we are part of that, whether we like it or not. I think, so I think there's a level of accountability for anyone who kind of like watched or somewhat supported. Not to say that he was a devil or anything like that. I don't agree with people who are saying things like that. And I don't think people should be speaking, like celebrating that he died, but that's up to them. But yeah, great point about his mother. Yeah, thoughts and prayers go out to his mother and family again.
Definitely.
Nathan, any last thoughts before I close up?
No, it's been a good show, and obviously, similar to thoughts. Just we have to respect each other's opinions. I think in this day and age, not everything we're going to agree with, but just live and let live. At the end of the day, man, this is a world. We've got free speech, free opinion. You don't have to like someone, but just kind of respect their privacy and the thoughts and mind, and that's it, really. But great show to both of you again, anyway.
Cheers, much appreciated. We'll connect soon. Thank you, everyone, for joining and listening in. I'm going to try and save this. Good night.
Thanks, Habib.
Take care, Cheryl.
See ya. Good night, guys. See you later.